Hi everybody, it's Jazz. I just wanted to create this video for people who are possibly HSPs, or if you think that you are. But in this video, I really wanted to just talk about my language learning experience as someone who is a highly sensitive person. So I'm gonna get into it. My main reason for learning languages has always been people-centered. Like, I encounter someone that I have had a connection with, whether it be personal, professional, just someone I feel like the fact that I learned German for the sake of the fact that I had a friend who happened to tell me that they were German, and we talked a lot. We were always at church all the time, and so I decided, you know what, I should pick it up because, you know, they're there all the time and they talk about their culture and where they're from and sometimes or whatnot. And then, you know, they told me it was a hard language to learn, and then I just learned it. So, you know, it's always been about someone else influencing me to learn it. As much as I do like challenges, it's been someone else has influenced me to learn a language, or based on my relationship with them. French has been my first love since day one of learning foreign languages. It is my it's my first language when it comes to foreign languages. So it's been mainly because of a personal connection that I've had. As I mentioned before, my birthday is a French holiday. It is July 14th, Bastille Day. And I mean, that's been my connection. I don't know, it's just one of those languages I just picked up and I just loved it.
Cette heure, c'est 20h40 ou 8 o'clock aux États-Unis, à Los Angeles.
But when it comes to traveling, for me, it's always been, how many people can I get in contact with? Like, how many people can I come home with, with WhatsApp numbers or emails, or, you know, whatever reason it may be. How many business cards can I collect? Because when I was studying abroad in Paris, we got to tour all these different places. And I was thinking, well, how many businesses can I connect with? How many friends can I make? How many people can I talk to? I mean, I'm a very introverted person, but when it comes to French culture and language and people, I was just thinking, I'm in a foreign country. Like, how many people can I really build a genuine relationship with? Another reason why we started our organization is because of those experiences that I had that I really wanted to share with other people. It's like, I understand what they're saying. I understand how there's the mentality of what they're trying to tell me. But if you ask me to translate that to English, I will not be able to help you because a lot of times I'm still processing what they're saying. But at the same time, I also feel like I understand what they're, you know, it's like that thing where it's like, I don't know how to explain it in words, but I understand what you just said. I understand. It was like a moment when I was in Mexico, my friend's, his dad, because I was telling them that, you know, or other than, you know, any information that I'm confused about, like, speak to me in Spanish. You know, this is Mexico. So he asked me, hey, you know, while they're setting up the table, can you reach up to the cabinet and pull out, I think it was like something that he wanted me to get. And he said it in Spanish, and everyone's looking at me and they said, Jazz, did you get that? And I said, we'll see. And so I went over to the cabinet. I said, I think this is what you're asking me. And he said, yes, that's exactly what I was asking. So sometimes I think, like, because I've heard, there's a really great podcast, and I also linked that below, it's from Melissa Griffin. And she had a guest on who is a psychotherapist that works specifically with HSPs. And she is an HSP. And she was talking about how sometimes people think in images, where it's like, you don't, like, words is like something that can be really hard to process sometimes. So it's like, I'll understand what someone's saying, but I just can't put it into words. And that's also part of like the brain where it's like that part of your brain where it's like it goes beyond language. It's like a physical, like, connection with another person. So there are times where I feel like conceptually in words I do not understand. That's why I said I understand it now later on because I had time to process it. And you know, obviously this is an experience that happened 2 years ago, so I can still kind of remember it and I can process it and what was going on. But at the moment, he just said something in Spanish and I just was like, my first reaction is, I think this is what you said. So sometimes, like, as an HSP, I feel like that's some experiences that I have, because it's like when someone asks me, okay, Jazz, like, what do they say? Like, I had some of those experiences when I was in Paris because I was with some people in our group who did not speak French at all. Like, what did they say? And I'm like, the gist of what I got was, this is what, you know, I'm really terrible with word to word translation. Don't ask me to ever translate anything word for word, because languages also don't work that way. Like, you know, not every language is going to have the same sentence structure to translate, you know, from one to the other. Another thing about HSPs is that being easily overwhelmed and being like overstimulated is something that can happen. And I can understand that because we process a lot of information at a deeper level. Like, you really like don't ever ask me to make a split-second decision, because I will like take like 3 days to make like a decision. Don't ever ask me what I want to eat for lunch. Like, any decisions, don't ask me, because I will think way too hard about it. You know, but I think like even overstimulation, it doesn't always happen with like negative events. Like, oh, there's so much stuff that I'm processing. It could be like overwhelmed from like an environment, because I know as a person, you know, from my own personality, is that I don't adjust very well to change. So, you know, long-term change, it's like, it takes me a while. When I was there in Paris, I was so excited because the TV was in French. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like exciting. And like, you know, like commercials are in French. Like, what are they listening to? Like, you know, I was so excited because it was things I normally are boring, you know, day-to-day stuff, but it was so new to me and I thought it was so exciting. You know, and sometimes I can get to not a sense of overwhelm, but it's like positive stress.
Bonjour tous, c'est mon palais pour vacances, palais d'été. Toutes mes pesantes ici qui veut entrer dans ma palais. You know, I really just wanted to do everything, and I had this sense of where I actually, for a couple of times, I had to like recognize that I actually needed food, because I was so like trying to take everything in it like from the moment that I got there, and it was so much because I'm like, new environment, new people, I've got to pay attention. Like, I'm not in an English speaking country. I need to switch my brain in that sense. So I was just like, there are times where I literally forgot to eat for several hours because I was just processing my environment, and there was just so many things I wanted to do.
桥上有巴黎守护女神三真神的铁的雕像。
On the subject of noticing subtleties, I think when it comes to learning a language from the initial stage, it's very easy, because a lot of times, like especially if you are trying to notice patterns like conjugation. When I learned French, it was very easy to pick up from the beginning, because okay, like it's the same ending. Every verb has the same ending despite irregularities. And sometimes it was like there's certain words where I know it was going to be irregular because of a certain way that I've noticed this. Or and I think like for me, I've never really been a very academic person. I think for me, it was, I've always learned best by observation because of that ability to observe. So for me, when it comes to learning, like the fact that, you know, in French, they have masculine and feminine genders, or, you know, in German case, they have masculine, feminine, and neutral genders. So from there, what I would do is even though like that may seem overwhelming, because all the time you have to remember which word goes with which gender, like which object is like the table is feminine in French, but then in German it's masculine. So it's like I always had to, with every language, I would always observe what articles were always used
whenever I saw that noun. So I'm thinking, okay, I think that this is feminine because every time I read documents or every time I see something written, it's always written with a feminine article. And then when you incorporate it into your vocabulary, it gets to the point where it's a pattern. It's like la table, der Tisch. It's just like you get into this habit of, okay, it's a rhythm, like to where it just sounds unnatural to say it any other way. Even with German, with the 4 cases, like 4 different articles of expressing what part of speech the sentence is I started basically reading stuff, and I started noticing that this sounds really odd to not say it this way, because every time I read this word in this particular context, it's always with this article. But I think that you're going to get the most where it's going to be forged into your memory is by observation, because my brain has been, from genetics, has been trained to notice little things. So I'm always noticing these little things, or every time this context shows up, this word is always, especially like with slang and idiomatic expressions. Like if you're watching like films, it's like I always notice that they use this word in this particular context. So I'm assuming that this word means this. So I really never have to, I really always learn vocabulary from observing. Is you want to learn the foundation, and that's going to be like the way that you get a sense of learning, but you really get the most experience and the most solidification of that knowledge when you see it on a regular basis to actually be able to point it out. So that's just, I don't know if that's like going to be helpful to anyone, but that's just basically how I've learned and solidified all my languages. I wouldn't say I'm fluent in all of them. I'm still currently maintaining them, but I still always try to find a way to just basically by observing. I just noticed that about myself, is I'm like, it's more like you expose yourself and then you ask questions to clarify what you've just observed. So that way you kind of have control over what you learn. So, I think that's the best way, because I think if you're like a person kind of like me, where I'm like, the classroom is, I learn a certain way where I'm very visual and I have to, constantly be exposed to it in order to maintain it, then I think that's kind of like the best way to go. And that's also why I never teach really vocabulary, because you can learn that as you go. Like, even in the English language, I didn't really learn English by studying vocabulary. I learned English because I hear it all the time. And then as I got older, there's certain words that were in my vocabulary because I've heard other people say it. Like I've learned, I think the word like compelled, I remember that because I used that word one time, and it was because I heard someone else say it and I incorporated it in my vocabulary. Yeah. And I think it's like, because like with HSPs, I know that like it's common for us to have like there's certain nerves that allow us to mirror people. So a lot of times when we hear people say things, sometimes we adopt what they say or what they think or how they feel. So I don't know, it's really interesting. So yeah, I think that that's really my experience with language learning as an HSP. I don't know if it's similar to you or whatnot. I encourage you to check out the resources if you want to learn more about HSPs. And I think, yeah, in the most part, my language learning experience has been around people. How can I get more connected to people? I like the idea of seeing real world uses. So even as, the founder of MMP, is that we're always constantly thinking about how can we improve someone's experience? How can I connect with someone? How can I make this as useful as possible? Because I'm going to be honest with you, learning from a textbook is really not exciting and it's not useful. So, anyone who's a math nerd, it's kind of like, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not understand at all the point of taking pre-calculus in high school. And then I don't use any of it because, first of all, it was never useful. And when I got to my senior year, I ended up just learning, I ended up taking AP statistics. I didn't use really anything that I learned from calculus, from pre-calculus. And the statistics was much more useful to me than pre-calculus was. So it was more exciting for me to learn statistics and be in that classroom because I knew how useful it was. I also do want to say that Frenchie Fridays is still going on until the 18th. So if any of the remaining sessions that interest you with French, you are more than welcome to still continue to sign up. So the main thing is you don't have to attend all the sessions. The main thing is that we want you to attend whichever sessions whichever sessions are pertaining to what you need help on. 30 minutes of 30 minutes of teaching, and then 30 minutes of Q&A and clarification. And if there's no questions, I'm just going to give you more examples and maybe give you some context that will help you out if you see them in real life. So, yeah.